usted necesita interpretación al español, puede dirigirse abajo de la pantalla en la mano derecha donde dice interpretation o más o menos interpretación y imprimir ahí y ahí pueden elegir Spanish para español y pueden entrar al canal donde Ricardo Ibarra, que es el traductor, va a estar traduciendo esta presentación, esta caminata con el supervisor. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you, Marcos. Good morning and welcome to the District 2 Virtual Corridor Walk with Supervisor Rabbitt. My name is Wayne Leach. I'm with CSW Superstro Engineering Group.
And I'm Richard Marzo from Lace House Linen in Petaluma. We are both board members of the Sonoma County Economic Development Board representing District 2. Today's event is part of a week-long celebration of economic development. We are offering a series of free virtual workshops geared to helping businesses at any stage. For more information on upcoming workshops and workshop recordings for this year's 2021 Sonoma County Economic Development Week, we encourage you to go to Sonoma EDB Economic Development Board.org, SonomaEDB.org. Before we introduce Supervisor Rabbitt, I want to briefly go over a few housekeeping items. We've reserved time at the end of today's program to answer questions from the Zoom Q&A feature. You are welcome to submit questions and comments anytime during the program. Please refrain from harmful language or personal attacks. Today's program and all programs this week are being recorded and will be available once again at the SonomaEDB.org.
Thank you, Ricardo. So it is with great pleasure that I introduce District 2 Supervisor David Rabbitt. Prior to joining the Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Rabbitt served on the Petaluma City Council. His current responsibilities include the following: Upstream Investments, Water Advisory Committee, the Remote Access Network Board, the Renewal Enterprise District Joint Powers Authority, the Sonoma County Indian Gaming Local Community Benefit Committee, the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, together with the Sonoma County Regional Climate Protection Authority, the Golden Gate Bridge District, the North Bay Water Reuse Authority, and the Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit 2 Board of Directors. Welcome, Supervisor Rabbitt.
Hey, thank you very much, Wayne. I appreciate that. And thank you as well, Ricardo. It's good to see both of you. And thank you for your service to the county. And thank you also to the staff of the Economic Development Board. And to everyone for joining us today. I look forward to having a good conversation, hearing about your concerns, letting you know what's happening at the county in this most awkward of times, quite frankly. Here we are. I just have to talk about this difficult, challenging year that we've all been through and are perhaps still experiencing, although there's a little light at the end of the tunnel now, which is great. I know this last year was devastating to so many businesses. The loss of income, the depletion of savings and capital, the scattering of workforce are just huge challenges to overcome, especially those businesses that were forced to shut down through the pandemic. But, you know, I think through the year and as a business liaison for the Board of Supervisors, it's been always businesses adapt and businesses are nimble. And I think we've seen a lot of that this particular year in spite of the challenging times. You know, look at the restaurants, for instance, the outdoor seating and the takeout and kind of just shifting the way that they went about doing their businesses to maximize their opportunities and that were in front of them. Retail, same thing, making sure that they're providing safe environments for their customers to come in and patronize when they were open. If you remember back in March of last year when the pandemic hit, I think we all were really wondering what was going to happen to the economy. There was talk of just a looming recession, if not depression, of massive scale. And what's been interesting is certainly not saying that those that have been directly hit the hardest by the pandemic, but it's really been a mixed bag. Even here, the indicators in the county, I think our sales tax is down slightly, but certainly not to the level that we thought it was going to be a year ago. Home values remain high. And I think here in Sonoma County, we've gotten, at least in the South County in our district, people moving here because it's a great place to live, and they're not necessarily tied to those locations where they had to live in order to make their commute work for them as they're working more remotely. And I think, personal savings rates are up for a lot of people again, and these are all positive things. So it's been a real mixed bag going forward. I mean, I think we're poised for recovery in a much better place than we probably thought we would be even a year ago because of that. And that's all, I think, a positive thing going forward. I think the other thing is to kind of just, I want to give a quick overview of where we are within the pandemic. And we're entering now our second week of really with yellow tier health criteria numbers. Our case rate, for instance, that number of new cases per 100,000 residents is 1.9, pretty much the lowest that it's ever been. And we still test higher than the state average, and we have a coefficient or a rate of 0.94. That allows that case rate to be adjusted slightly down, which is a good thing, keeps us in that yellow tier. The positivity rate, and if you remember, this number was double digits and beyond for such a long time, is right now 0.9%. And the HPI quartile positivity rate for those other census tracts is 1.2%. And both of those are in the yellow tier. And of course, in California, with the way the tiers works is that you have to stay within those numbers for 2 weeks minimum before you can advance. So we're hoping that that's going to be the case going forward. But either way, the tiers with the governor's announcement go away on June 15th. And things will open up again, including schools to full-time instruction, which I know a lot of parents are very excited about, although that right in time for summer vacation, of course. But I think there are two criteria, though, that are important for that to happen. One is that the positivity rates stay controlled, and the other is the hospitalization rates stay controlled. And I'm sorry, the one is to make sure that the vaccinations are available for the bulk of the population in California. And speaking of vaccinations, I think our county's actually done a very good job. We now have half of Sonoma County is fully vaccinated, and more than 2/3 have at least one shot in their arm. And that's really great. Although I can tell you that we have reached an inflection point where the demand for shots is now less than the supply. We have more shots going not unused, but the appointments are not being filled to the same extent. Those who were eager to get their shots seemingly have done so. So we're redoubling our efforts to make sure that we can do outreach and reach those that are hesitant, those that haven't stepped up to get their shot, because we really do obviously want to reach that herd immunity sooner than later. And there's a variety of reasons why people seemingly are hesitant. And we're trying to tackle each and every one of those to really make sure that we can convince people this is the right thing to do. It's going to be a challenge. And I don't think it's our challenge alone here in Sonoma County that we're seeing these same kind of numbers throughout the state and even the nation. So that's a big piece going forward to make sure that we can open up and feel safe and do all the things that we want to do. And perhaps what happens is that, you see some of the sporting events now that tie attendance to whether or not you're vaccinated or whether or not you've received a recent test. And perhaps we'll see more of that to kind of push people in that direction. Herd immunity is really the goal. And I think from all the experts, herd immunity won't happen until you're well over 75, up into 80, 85% at a minimum. I will say that this last year, the county, the EDB has done a great job in terms of accepting and coordinating, the operational plans for businesses. It's been a wild year in many ways as we've gone through the initial shutdowns, which I know were frustrating for many people, including myself. The state has been interesting partner to work with or not work with as the dictates come out and catch us all by surprise. And then we try to play catch up, trying to really provide clarity to businesses about what is open, what's not, what you can do and what you can't. So many things were, as we called them, tweeners, those things that kind of fell between the cracks. But people just needed direction and wanted clarity of what they can do and when. And I think EDB and the county did a very good job of trying to get that information back out into those businesses, answer their questions so they knew what they could do going forward as we all learn to live with this pandemic. I think roles and responsibilities were interesting too, right? Even from the Board of Supervisors, I will tell you, that when there's a pandemic declared, the health officer has great authority, as they should. And certainly health is the number one priority for the county going forward. But even roles and responsibilities between county and then the state to the federal government. And what I've always said through this whole rollout is that prior to the pandemic, it's safe to say that our nation has had a very fractured and splintered healthcare delivery system, and it was really no different through the pandemic, whether it was the testing or even the vaccination rollout. And we're still struggling with a lot of that. The county is ultimately that safety net that really makes sure that there's an equitable distribution. Those that are usually the last to receive something are not going to be, or are looked out for by the county to make sure that they can receive their vaccination, make sure that their health is also raised to a level of importance that it is. So it's really that part of that role of the county is to make sure that we provide that. And of course, as vaccines rolled out, they did so in December. They did so in a way that was dictated by the state. Certainly healthcare providers first, making sure the hospitals can be safe and be open, first responders next, and so on down the line. The demographics of those certain tiers are what they are essentially. And then, and now I think you see us really we've always had a big emphasis on equity, but playing catch up a little bit because of those demographics of those initial tiers, skewing the numbers initially until you build more capacity going forward. And I will say on the capacity side of things, the counties had the ability from early on, thanks to our public health department, of providing 40,000 shots. But we've been, it's always been limited by the vaccine availability. And you remember there, we used to be chasing down, what we were going to get in any given week, making sure that we had enough for the second shots of those who received the first shot, either 3 or 4 weeks ago. It was a logistical challenge and still remains so. Although again, right now, you can pretty much walk into a clinic and get your shot. And I hope that everyone who's tuned in today has done so. And if you do go to My Turn app, it's probably the most comprehensive app that will tell you what's available and where. You could even find apps that will tell you which vaccine that you could receive. I personally was made eligible after, I'm 61, so I was eligible after got my shot on April 7th. Once I was eligible, I got a Johnson & Johnson shot. I got the one shot and I was done kind of thing. Prior to it, prior to the pause, happy to get my shot, never had a side effect, feel much better about it, and look forward to life as going on as we used to know it pre-pandemic going forward. So I think the county's role through this whole thing has really been to provide information on the health side to really make sure that we had the ability to step in. We stepped in to address the state regulated care facilities early on, if you remember that as well. And that was an expenditure on the county's part, but we saw what was happening with the federal contract was just going too slow, and we were seeing too many cases, and those cases were then exploding. We were in the purple tier for far too long, and I think some of that just has to do with the economic sectors of our county and the demographics. It became difficult. We had a strategy to get out of that through really expanding our testing capability and lowering the overall adjusted case rate number by having the testing be so much above the state median. And we were there, and of course, then the governor froze the tiers. So right as we were about to advance from purple to red, they froze the tiers, and we had to wait on that. But today, I think looking back, we're in a much better place. Knock on wood. We still have some, we don't want to take anything for granted, and we still have some ways to go. Again, herd immunity being so important to all of us going forward. I think throughout all that, other things have happened this year that I think have been positives. I want to give you a quick update. I'm involved in a lot of the transportation pieces around the county and the Bay Area as a member of the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, but also a commissioner at the Metropolitan Transportation Commission, which oversees the 9 county Bay Areas, Bay Area counties for all the transportation needs, as well as I'm the chair of the programming and allocations, which is a good thing because that's where the money flows. And at our programming and allocations meeting about, let's say 2 weeks ago now, we did bring forward a swap of funds to allow the 101 Narrows project in Marin County to go forward. The 101 Narrows project in Marin had a couple different fund sources that were dedicated to it, but one of those is tied up in the Supreme Court of California, and that's the Regional Measure 3 funds. That case is not yet heard. It could be another 12 to 18 months. And that project could not start because those dollars are in escrow. So what we did was swap those dollars out with another funding source, and now that project is going to go out to bid. So I think we saved probably at least, in real terms, probably at least a year, if not 2 years of a construction time and that's the project from Novato up to just south of the Sonoma County line. So I'm very happy that that's moving forward. And I think that's a good positive thing. We'll have some more traffic down that way. We'll have some more jobs, but we'll have a 3 lanes all the way up into Sonoma County and beyond. We'll have literally a well over 1 billion. I think it's closing in on $1.2 billion project from that took 20 years from start to finish, but 101 will finally be complete going forward, and look forward to that. Here locally, we've also had some good successes. Helen Putman Park, if you saw the Argus Courier this morning, Carol Eber, who is my appointee on the Parks Foundation, does such a great job as being an advocate for the parks. Parks were heavily used this last year with the pandemic, which is a great thing, one positive. People just wanting to get out and walk in nature and take advantage of the things that are local. Helen Putman has had some great work done to it, expansion on the let's see, that would be the north side there across from the West Haven development. Possible expansion on the others, of course, that's up to the city and whatever they want to do with the development on the D Street in Windsor. But the trail work within the park itself, I think has been very just stellar. Parks overall, next Tuesday, I think we take 2 more open space districts into the regional park system. Regional parks has at least doubled since I've been on board, and I think that's what the people of not only Petaluma but the people of Sonoma County do want: the access to outdoors and to be able to get to those places. And we have some wonderful, wonderful regional parks, and we have a financial system in place now that can really make investments on keeping those parks up and in making sure the improvements are taken care of there as well. Open space, same thing with well over 110,000 acres of open space in this county protected. And most notably, just recently, there was $1 million grant given to the McNair Peninsula project, which is a good thing because I think it ties the public money into a private venture, which I applaud them for moving forward on. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to really make that place that's so unique, the Central Park, that it can be for the Petaluma area. And of course, we are, and I'm looking at Wayne's picture with the river behind him, but the dredging completion this last year was also, obviously well received and way overdue, but we're happy to have that complete going forward. And as we move forward out of the pandemic and we look for business recovery, there's obviously opportunities, and EDB is the place to go for getting the latest and greatest on that. Opportunities for business aid. One thing that is coming back to the board at my request is to make sure that we relieve the fees that environmental health would charge to certain establishments that then were forced to close. It just seems common sense that you don't charge a fee for a business that could not be open. And those were inspection fees for restaurants and tattoo parlors and a couple of other pools and those kind of things. So I think, you know, we want to follow through on that. We have to backfill those dollars then, of course, with other funding sources, but we can do that. Challenges going forward, certainly. I just got off a long call with our colleagues in Marin County regarding the drought. Yesterday, I testified at the State Assembly Committee on drought issues on behalf of the Water Agency. There are some, since 2014, there are some great things going on in terms of water management. But at the end of the day, it takes water from the sky to really fill our reservoirs and make sure that we can continue going forward. So this year, we are going to have a 20% voluntary restriction that will become mandatory as we go through the summer months, and hopefully we can look forward to, again, knock on wood, some earlier rains next year in the fall and break this cycle. This is our second year. Right now, if you remember, 76-77 was the drought of record. And we are literally 3 inches less rainfall than that year. That's not good. Lake Sonoma, which has 3 years worth of water supply, is basically down 1 year. It's down to about 62% capacity. Lake Mendocino is even worse. It's down about 42% capacity. So it's so early in the year, and we have a lot of time to go, and that's going to be a challenge for all of us. The ag folks out west, the call this morning was really about that, and we're working on some solutions for them to make sure that their livestock can be watered. We need to make sure that we support ag certainly to the west of Petaluma and elsewhere, but to really protect those businesses, because if they go out, it'll put undue pressure on those lands for other purposes, which I think we will come to rue. I noticed this morning in the Argus Courier, homelessness. Homelessness is not a problem just of Petaluma. It's a problem of the entire county, the state, and the nation, really. And it's a very difficult challenge and difficult thing to tackle. There is no, I think, easy solution. It takes a lot of different approaches. It really takes making sure that we can go after and kind of just find housing one person at a time and break that cycle that's out there. And it's become more difficult, quite frankly. And the Boise decision that the Supreme Court did not take up really kind of puts some other makes it a little more difficult for jurisdictions. But at the end of the day, it's really about making sure we're doing the right thing for those folks to get them into programs that are going to be beneficial. And at the end of the day, it's really having a roof over one's head that will break that cycle entirely. So lots of work to do there. Looking forward to post-COVID life, getting back to normal. Interesting to see how commute patterns will change. Hopefully some people will stay remote and keep the traffic down. It improves our greenhouse gas emissions as well. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back. And I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm going to wing it. Wayne, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Rabbitt. Thanks for the update and your commitment to economic development. So I'd like to go ahead and introduce the Sonoma County Economic Development Board's Business Assistance Team. All four have been working tirelessly since day one of the pandemic to provide equitable relief and recovery assistance. Together, they have personally assisted over 900 businesses with COVID-19 related issues. They've also reached over 2,700 people through outreach and presentations, providing recovery and mitigation resources. In addition to providing COVID-19 business relief and recovery services, they also assist businesses with starting up, expansion and relocation, financing, business consultation, workforce assistance, and more. I've asked each of them today to introduce themselves and the services they provide, and to share an accomplishment in the last year they are most proud of. Take it away, team.
Thank you, Wayne. I will kick it off. My name is Christine Palmer. I am a program manager here at the Economic Development Board. As Wayne mentioned, I'm part of a 4-person team that provides direct business assistance to help our local economy. I specialize in 2 key areas. The first is providing market research to help our businesses to launch and grow. Our research found that although this information is readily available in the marketplace, our businesses don't often access it, either due to lack of time or money. So we have made this available for free to help give our businesses a more competitive edge. So some examples of the tools that we can provide are everything from industry reports, which helps you to understand your market, demographics to understand where your target market is located here in the county, site location assistance, and marketing lists, reaching out to new customers. That's probably our most popular. The second area I focus in is supporting our emerging sectors. So that includes craft beer several years ago, and most recently working with our outdoor recreation sector. Regarding your question, Wayne, about what I'm most proud of in 2020, I would have to say it's the response that the business assistance team did regarding COVID. From the very start, we were on the front lines, fielding calls, making presentations on CARES Act funding, reopening guidelines, and then most recently kind of vaccine rollout for essential workers. So really in a time of great uncertainty, I hope that we were a reliable and a trusted point of contact. And I'd say the real truth is in the pudding. We got many repeat phone calls from businesses asking to interpret the latest state regulations or to understand what the phase of reopening would be for them. I'll just note that I'm particularly proud of the work that we did regarding the reopening of the outdoor recreation companies last summer. So as Supervisor Rabbitt mentioned, there was very little federal or state guidance in the early days. So the EDB and the county took a leadership role working with our cities and chambers to help create stakeholder groups in order to create best management practices and guidelines for reopening. I worked with our outdoor recreation folks, so Sonoma Canopy Tours, Safari West, Wine Country Trekking, and together we put together some effective guidelines for reopening. Now that became very important because when the state did finally release their phases of reopening, there was no guidance on outdoor recreation. It had been overlooked. As Supervisor Rabbitt had mentioned, we started calling these kind of unicorn sectors, ones that had not been addressed. So this was really a critical time. We were approaching the summer. Many of the businesses were struggling to stay afloat. They were privately sharing with me. So thanks to the work that the EDB and regional parks and our county health officer, we were able to advocate and allow for outdoor recreation to open safely in time for the summer high season. So I'm really proud of the work we did, and moving forward, we certainly hope to bring our flexibility and our problem-solving approach to future projects. Thank you. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Lauren.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lauren Cartwright. I'm the Business Retention and Expansion Program Manager for the Sonoma County Economic Development Board. My role primarily focuses on looking at different financial opportunities for businesses who are looking to expand in the area, whether it's looking for traditional financial solutions or different alternatives like grant funding or crowdsourcing or anything like that. So the last year has been kind of interesting for business expansion. I would say there's probably been more of an uptick in startup requests that we get. So Amongst the 900 disaster inquiries that we had, we also had more than 200 people reach out who were just looking to retool their skills. Maybe they lost their job and they've been thinking about a business idea for many years. They finally had time to kind of push it forward. So we worked with those folks, just kind of helping them understand licensing requirements. Can I actually, zoning requirements, can I actually have a business here? How can I fund this business during the time of the pandemic? So that's another way that we kind of help them out, and just connecting them with different resources, whether it's in our own department or with local, the Napa Sonoma Small Business Development Center. In terms of accomplishments, I think the thing I'm most proud of, and as Supervisor Rabbitt touched on, is just all the information in the beginning. You have 10 different websites to go to try and find out if you can be open or not. What do you do for your employees? How do you figure out unemployment? And I think if you look at a small business, the business owner, for the most part, they're trying to manage HR, they're trying to pay their bills, they're trying to figure out what to do with their employees. They don't have time to go to 10 different resources, right? So we created this kind of one-stop shop SoCo launch, and we just worked really hard looking at all the different grants that were available, all the different employee resources, any state and guidance if there was some, and just trying to put it on this single web page so folks didn't have to go and spend hours looking for information. And it also was a great tool for our team as we received all these different calls, because it was updated, not daily, like every half an hour practically, because the state website was consistently changing. It was a good resource for us to try and provide real-time feedback and assistance for businesses. I'll let Marcos talk a little more about it, but we did also incorporate a lot of translation onto this. We realized in the beginning that not only was translation not available, but sometimes people were relying on Google Translate. And not that Google Translate isn't a beneficial tool, but you have to understand how many different dialects there are and just how many different ways you can, refer to something. So we worked with a local translator just to translate everything that our department was producing. We were even on the fence of if we should try and translate all the state information, but then again, how frequently was that changing? So SoCo Launch created a really great site where it was here, you can view this in English or view it in Spanish, and it was the exact same on both sides. And we've just been trying to work hard to kind of keep that accessibility out there for all the cultures in our area. So with that, Marcos, why don't you take it on?
Thank you, Lauren. Good morning, everyone. Supervisor Rabbitt, thank you for being with us, and everybody that's present. Yes, I'm the Business Diversity Program Manager. So what I do is I help business throughout the county, especially meeting with them pre-COVID, and when they're doing a startup, sitting down with them, helping them navigate the permitting licensing process. And I do speak Spanish, so a lot of the people that come and see me are monolingual Spanish speakers, but I also work with our Black business owners in our community, Asian, LGBTQ. And one of the things that I also do is I usually go to some of the corners out there in Sonoma County, obviously pre-COVID, but even during COVID, sometimes with my mask, going out to different areas as far as Cloverdale, West County, going into Petaluma or Sonoma in the Springs, and making sure that we're doing boots on the ground. And that was very key, especially early in the pandemic, because yes, a lot of people were not really getting the information, especially because not everyone was online. And yes, many people are on Facebook and whatnot, but we realized very quickly that we needed to do something. So we, with our partners, including the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce and Petaluma Latino entrepreneurs out in Petaluma, and other groups, we were getting out there, boots on the ground, making sure that our business owners knew the guidelines, knew the BMPs, and especially signage, in English and Spanish, making sure that we were supporting the businesses, not only to protect their employees, also the public, and including all the grants, everything that was available to them. And like Lauren mentioned, it was crucial that, especially thanks to our leader, Shiva Person Whitley, that, she was really, really strong on making sure that we actually now have a policy in place at the EDB that anything that's produced through the EDB, it doesn't go out to public consumption unless it's translated in Spanish. So that has been really good. And I just have to say thank you to Alina, that she's always on it, and she's always, translating, getting the documents translated with our contracted interpreter, Ricardo Ibarra, and that's been working really well. And last, with the question about what I'm most proud of, I would have to say the collaboration with all the different organizations throughout the county, and including, like I mentioned, the Petaluma Latino entrepreneurs. And I started holding a weekly meeting every Thursday in the morning with monolingual Spanish speakers, Latino entrepreneurs, and just giving them all the information. And I'm glad and I'm happy to say that there's many business owners, Latino business owners that were able to get access to those grants and loans, and quite a couple that even sometimes got out 5 or most of the grants, which is really good. It goes to show that we really were working hard, and more importantly, I think that at times some of the entrepreneurs were, they're kind of like, they would get discouraged, right? Because but in our meetings and just calling them and reaching out to them and going there directly and talking to them to make sure that they applied, and right now we're seeing the fruits of that labor, because early on it was kind of we weren't seeing the numbers, but now we're seeing the numbers. And so anyway, well, thank you. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Patty Andrews.
Thank you, Marcos. Good morning. My name is Patty Andrews, and I'm the Program Manager for Business Services here at the EDB. And what I specialize in is workforce services. So what I do and how I can help is by working with you to recruit employees and expand your workforce, especially during these times of COVID and us reopening. I also can help by educating you with all the various resources and financial workforce programs that you are potentially eligible for and how to qualify. And so these programs can help you pay for training for new employees as well as your current employees to upskill them. Also, I can help you learn how to take advantage of all the various tax credits and incentives that are available to you. Another way the EDB helps the business community is by recruiting business support for local grant opportunities. So an example of this is recently Sonoma County had the opportunity to apply for a grant that focused on English language learners, and simultaneously also assisting them with occupational skills. And as many as you know, the construction and trades industry is really desperate for a workforce. So to that end, the county crafted a grant application that focused on, with the JC, and focused on increasing those English skills for these second language learners, as well as learning some construction and trades occupational skills. And we can craft the best grant and the best case for providing funding to Sonoma County. However, it's really the employer support, the document that yes, this funding is needed. Yes, they need additional resources in that workforce pipeline. And due to that, we were able to access an additional $183,000 to help workforce. And without the collaboration with our business partners, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So those are just some ways that I can help my business partners with services. And to address Wayne's question, what am I most proud of? Well, this position is relatively new to the EDB, but having said that, what I'm most proud of is really being able to utilize the skills in my history with 26 years with the Human Services Department and working with the Workforce Investment Board, and bringing those workforce resources and bridging them over to the EDB. And so this is really an exciting opportunity, and I look forward to working with our business partners as we're coming out of COVID and helping you with your workforce needs. So thank you.
Wonderful. And with that, I think we're going to transition into Q&A. And before we start, I did want to chime in. Supervisor Rabbitt mentioned the fee offset program that he's working on with environmental health. We actually just sent out an email this morning to all of our constituents in the area and all of our contacts to try and gain feedback from the community. So Supervisor Rabbitt will make sure you get a copy of that as well, but that went out maybe an hour before this. And we'll include some information in the chat. So if you're a restaurant owner, body art, any pools at your business, feel free to provide feedback, and there's kind of a breakdown of what the proposal is for that fee offset program. So any questions, there's also an email address in there to please let us know, and we're happy to kind of take that feedback. Environmental Health is going to collect all the data, questions, feedback over the next 2 weeks and consolidate it in preparation for the presentation to the Board of Supervisors on May 25th. So thank you for bringing that up. And then let's go ahead and get started. There's 3 questions already here. Supervisor Rabbitt, there's one directed towards you regarding when Petaluma will be open for outdoor festivals. I don't know if you want to tackle that, or our team can try to as well. Oh, I think you're still on mute.
That's a great question. And like you said earlier, or someone said earlier, things are changing as we go and getting reinterpreted. We have great, Adam Radke at the County Council's office is in contact with the state often, getting clarification. I know that my office held both a small event coordinator meeting and a large event meeting, the large event being the street fairs, parades, the Sonoma Marin Fair, the Sonoma County Fair, the Raceway. There are ways to hold those events now. You're limited by some social distancing requirements and whatnot. And I'll look to if I don't have the specifics in front of me, so I'm not sure if anyone from EDB does, and I'll look for any help on anything that's a little more detailed.
I think as of right now, it kind of depends on the size. They do have kind of an outdoor capacity. If you want to send us an email, we can look at the details for you, but I think it has to do with capacity at this point. I know I was emailing with Sonoma Marin Fairgrounds, just kind of about a livestock event they wanted to have, but that was specific, like a specific event within the fairgrounds, but hopefully opening up soon. I know that the Santa Rosa Fairgrounds are also working on plans as well. And with the opening of, theme parks and amusement parks, I'm sure this is coming down the pipeline too.
One last thing on that, because it's true for a lot of these things, is that we are now, I think today today being Thursday, I think it's the 9th consecutive day of being in the yellow tier criteria numbers. So if this remains, you have to be in that for 2 weeks or 14 days. So by next Tuesday, we could also be in the yellow tier, which then changes the requirements again, especially for events, because it has to do with the number of people that are able to be within the capacity. So it's something, and we apologize, but it's something that we're constantly is in flux. We need to make sure that we stay on top of it. And that's the great work that EDB does, is to make sure that they have that information available for you.
Yeah, and we'll make sure I'll try and take a few minutes before the end of this call today as well, just to jump in and see if I can find anything on the state's website that we can drop in the chat as well. Okay, Supervisor Rabbitt, another question for you. They're asking about the status of the second smart station and what are your requirements for the next general manager?
Second smart station, we're actually looking good right now. Just last week, I was, as a little perk about being chair of SMART right now, is I was able to put $2 million of the capital improvement funds aside for that second smart station. There was a whole mix, there's a long story regarding the development proposals that were in front of the city for the downtown site. The sale of the downtown site was originally going to take the proceeds from that sale. We're going to build that second smart station, because right now SMART does not have the money in the bank other than the $2 million. We are, and since that kind of went sideways, we are working with the developer of the affordable housing project at the Corona Road site, and we were working with the same developer up in another developer up in Roseland for a sustainable communities grant. That sustainable communities grant we were successful in obtaining has a partnership with a public transit agency, in this case SMART, and SMART is eligible to receive up to $10 million within that grant. So the 10 million plus the 2 will give us 12, which will get us what we think will be the station on the east side of town, and that's without the sale of the downtown site. So that's the plan B, which is going forward. And I'm looking forward to that, because obviously the majority of people in Petaluma live on that east side. We think there's a huge opportunity there, as well as the right thing to do going forward. For the next general manager, I give kudos to Farhad Mansourian. He did come in and at a time when SMART was in a little bit of flux when he was originally hired. He told the truth about what we could and couldn't do. I wasn't on the board at that particular time, but I know that he's been very consistent in that. He is a guy that gets things done. I know Wayne probably knows him well from his work in Marin County. And he did, within a few months of being hired, he had contracts out and got the project built to the extent that it is today. And for that next general manager, it's really a mixture of continuing on the capital improvements. Obviously, we still want to go north. We still have some infill to do along the tracks along the way. We need to get the Windsor piece complete. But we're also looking for that longer term person to really kind of who understands the operations of public transit, in this case, fixed rail. It's a interesting job in that you have to have interface with the federal, state, and regional level. You have to be looking for making sure that you're in tune with all the different opportunities that are out there. And my phone, apparently CVS wants me to pick up something. But really looking forward to that transition. Hate to see Farhad go, but you know, we knew that we had some extra years out of him, and he's been a great resource, I believe, for the 2-county region, and he'll have a good legacy when he does retire.
And they have more of a comment here. Just Marcos, thanking you for your support of Latino businesses. The information you provide us in virtual meetings has helped us to access financial aid from the federal, state, and county. It's allowed our family business to remain open. So thank you for that compliment, Juan. Marcos is one person hitting many areas across the region, trying to do the best he can to share information. So we're very grateful for all that he does for us and for the team.
Thank you. It's what we do at EDB, and we'll continue to work for you guys. Thank you.
And I don't see any other questions. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Thank you for the SMART update. Exciting to see that progress. Let's see. Could anyone provide an update on the forest waste situation in Sonoma BioBiz? Supervisor Rabbitt, are you familiar with that? If not, Turok, I'm happy to look into that for you if you wanted to send us an email with your contact information.
Yeah, I don't have any information on that specifically. I can tell you that, you know, obviously post fires and the post PG&E settlement, there's been lots of talk, as there should be, about wildfire, you know, threat, as well as climate change and opportunities that really exist in our landscape to make sure that we move forward. We set aside a large segment of the PG&E funds to address this issue. We went to UC Berkeley to come up with a kind of coordinated plan of attack on how best to spend those monies. We look forward to leveraging those dollars further. We do feel that there's opportunities. Obviously, there's funding out there for wildfire suppression. There's funding out there for climate change adaptation. Just this morning on the drought call, for instance, and the drought obviously is related to all this. You know, if we really are moving forward with a carbon sequestration, for instance, at a landscape scale, it does rely on installation of hedgerows, something that we don't always have, especially west of Petaluma. Hedgerows obviously require vegetation to be planted and to be nurtured at least for a few years and watered. And during a drought, you know, it goes counter to what, but it's another argument for funding sources to solve the problem and kind of encapsulate it. I will tell you that ag ponds, dried ag ponds, do not help during fire season. So that's also another approach to take. And I can tell you this too, my son is in CAL FIRE, is already working, went to, I think, 3 fires last week. And they, just to let you know, the year that we're in for, the fuel moisture content in vegetation right now is about equivalent on May 1st, is about equivalent to what it usually is at the end of August. So it is extremely dry and we're in for a long year. So we need to tackle all these issues simultaneously. And I will say this on the other piece, on the veg management part, is that it's not just a one-time approach. It's going to have to be an ongoing strategy of really making sure that we have those investments. Obviously, vegetation grows back. We need to make sure it's not just clear cutting. It's really being strategic about looking at the understory. And I will say this too, you all know this, that it's different down here in our district, in District 2, than it is elsewhere. Outside of building a firewall up against Napa, where the fires seem to come across into Sonoma or into Santa Rosa, you know, our threats down here are just a little bit different in terms of the wildfire. They're still here, but they're just a little bit different. And we're taking all that into consideration when we come up with the overall strategy.
Yeah, and I know one thing I mentioned on the calls this week too, it's interesting to see specifically around biomass. One other thing that our department does is we work with the state with regards to businesses who are looking to potentially move here. And in the last few months, we've had 3 or 4 requests come in around biomass and creating anaerobic digesters and how they can use existing agricultural waste. So I'm thinking it'll be really interesting in the coming years to see who kind of retools their skills or wants to relocate to Sonoma County or California based on biomass, based on vegetation management. I think there could be some great entrepreneur ideas that come out of that as well. Let's see if anyone has any questions, please feel free to drop it into the chat. And then one thing, Supervisor Rabbitt, I wanted to touch on too, or let's see, actually. Two Rock says, where can one find the data on the amount of valuable wood waste that is being processed monthly and annually? For example, the number of contractors, PG&E crews, and Sonoma crews. This is a great opportunity to create new wood waste businesses, and more data and information would help. And he'll send a follow-up email too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that, it would probably be a collection of gathering data from different sources to kind of figure out and combine it. I think it's a great question, something we can follow up on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an interesting time where our business community, we're always saying we're so resilient. And I feel like, not that the pandemic wasn't like a huge impact on everyone, but I feel like Sonoma County was just kind of like, okay, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to kind of retool? I mean, I feel like everyone's got 4 different continuity of operation plans, whether it's a fire, a flood, a power shut off, or now a pandemic. So folks have just been really resilient and just kind of like, okay, how can I try to move forward and just function? So, well, with that, if I don't see any other questions, please feel free to contact any of the program managers of the Economic Development Board. We're happy to answer any questions, look into financing options for you. If you have any feedback or just ideas, please feel free to always bring that to the table as well. Thank you so much, Supervisor Rabbitt, for being here today and for doing this virtual corridor walk. What a time we are in. And if anyone has any questions, just let us know. But happy Thursday and have a great day.
No, thank you
Thank
all.
you, Supervisor Rabbitt.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Be safe.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, guys. So this concludes our program for today. I'd like to thank Supervisor Rabbitt for his leadership and his support for economic development in our community. I'd also like to thank the EDB Business Assistance Team for their wonderful work. And thank you all who attended today. Good day.